This is Max Grossman from the El Paso Taxpayer Revolt, and today it is my great pleasure to welcome City Representative Joe Molinar from District 4. How you doing, Joe?
Doing well.
So great to see you today. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, sir.
Today we're going to get to know Joe a little better and talk about his career as a U.S. Marine, as a police officer, and as a city representative. We'll talk about his policies. But at the outset, I want to say that Joe is running for re-election. The election is November 5th, and we absolutely endorse Joe for re-election. We think that he's done an exceptional job, not a good job, an exceptional job, and that he's been an incredibly important voice for the El Paso taxpayer and just has done an outstanding job of representing not only his district, but the city at large. So I want to say that from the outset. So, Joe, let's start a little bit from the beginning.
Sure.
Tell us where you're from and where you grew up.
Okay. I was born in El Paso, Texas, here in El Paso. We went ahead and moved. My parents moved from the central part of El Paso to northeast El Paso. Pretty much I was raised in northeast El Paso. I attended local public schools there. I did graduate from Andrews High School.
Andrews, yeah.
Andrews High School, home of the Proud Eagles. And so that was a very good experience. I enjoyed my time in high school.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you graduated when you were 18?
Graduated just a little bit after 18 years old, yes.
And how old were you when you entered the United States Marines?
Right soon thereafter, I was 18 years old.
Why'd you become a Marine? There it is. There it is. Now we're talking.
Very simple. When I was 13, as a freshman there at the school, I did see two Marines in their dress blue uniforms, and I was accustomed to seeing United States Army personnel throughout the city of El Paso, and a lot of times they just didn't, either their uniform was not correct or their hair was not correct, and having my father been a World War II veteran, he showed us a lot of things: discipline, decision-making, leadership. And so when I saw these two Marines at the campus at the high school, I was like, I want to be one of them. So I did my research. You go to the library back then and started learning about the United States Marine Corps, its history, its customs, its traditions, how to enlist. And at the age of 17, I did enlist, but I had to wait 1 year, what's called the delayed entry program. And so after graduation, I entered service and went to boot camp in San Diego, California. I was a Hollywood Marine.
And tell us about boot camp. When I think about boot camp, I think about Full Metal Jacket, Stanley Kubrick, that initial scene with the drill sergeant. Is it like that?
That is about 92% correct.
Only 92%?
Yes, because there's other things, because not only would the senior drill instructor be on you, you would have a cadre of other Marine drill instructors on you at all times. They're constantly yelling, but they're also constantly teaching you what to do, how to do it, for many reasons. And someone's always there to help you, to guide you, to train you. And that is unique about the United States Marine Corps. I'm sure other services do that as well, but I think the Marine Corps does it 10 times better.
Did you get a nickname in the first week?
Not just yet. I did get a nickname later on, but not the first week.
Am I allowed to ask you what that is?
Later on.
Later on. We'll get to that later.
Okay.
So you served from when to when?
From 1978 to 1982.
Okay, so between Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, so when I entered service in 1978, President Jimmy Carter was in office. Through my boot camp, I went to Millington, Tennessee, went to my A school there. I was transferred to California, to a place called Tustin, California, Marine Corps Air Station Tustin. And while I was there, I was under the command of a lieutenant colonel by the name of A.C. Blades. A.C. Blades saw something in me, and also this is the part where I will tell you is that the line chief, and Master Sergeant Bostic, he did pull me aside and asked me a couple of questions. And so from there on, he says, "You're the chief." Okay. What am I as a 19-year-old going to tell a Master Sergeant? No, I can't do that. So the next day during morning formation, he called me out. And in front of everybody, he tells everyone, from now on, this man is the chief.
That was your nickname?
That became my nickname.
The chief?
The chief.
Works for me.
I was 19 years old. But anyways, had a lot of responsibilities. We would fly the CH-53 helicopters. I was not a crew chief yet, but I was in training. And my commanding officer, like I said, AC Blades, did recommend me to go to what's called HMX-1 in Quantico, Virginia. And so that is the presidential helicopter squadron for the president. Jimmy Carter, like I said, was still in office. I got orders. I went to Quantico, Virginia. And from there, it was a very eye-opening experience because you went from a nice, sunny Southern California to the very cold in Quantico, Virginia, which is fine, but it was an adaptation. And so the background for my life had been started. They went ahead and hit my neighbors, my teachers, other students, family members, and while they're doing my background, we're learning. So I'm still on a CH-53 helicopter. We're doing support missions for President Jimmy Carter. We go to Plains, Georgia, and we go to other places throughout the country. Eventually, I do get my clearance. I get transferred over to what they call the white side. And from the white side, that's where it all starts, that I'm now transitioning from a CH-53 to a VH-1 helicopter, which is the helicopters that fly the actual President of the United States, dignitaries, heads of states, senators, congresspeople, all kinds of stuff like that. So now, instead of a support mission, we were actually flying the mission. I earned my wings the second time as a crew chief on a VH-1, so I earned them twice, but on the second time, so I became a Marine One crew chief. And by then, President Ronald Reagan had defeated Jimmy Carter.
Now, hold on a second. Marine One is the presidential helicopter.
That is correct. Anytime the President of the United States is on that helicopter, it's designated as Marine One.
So you met Ronald Reagan.
Oh, yes. It's hard to put into words what it is. The leader of our country, the man you can see on TV, the person that you read about, perhaps maybe even see in movies, and to go there, whether it's in Camp David on a mission trip in a different city, and a hangar where the President of the United States enters the room. Of course, we acknowledge his presence. We all stand up to attention. He's like, rest easy, boys, it's okay. But very nice man, asks you questions, where are you from? Just like if he knew you. And, called you a Marine, you thank you, you're doing a fantastic job. And just not really engage in a lot of conversation, but knowing that he was there, it was just like very different. The most important person in the free world, in the country, in the free world, and he's there, and you get to shake his hands, you get to talk to him. Back then, we did not have cell phones, so you couldn't take a selfie with a man.
You understand that? Your generation years, there was life before cell phones. Okay, yes. We got proof right here.
And so, very proud. My very first mission is going at Camp David, and this is the Sunday. So the President Ronald Reagan, so he had this thing where 10 o'clock on a Friday, it would be wheels up, and we would pick him up from the South Lawn at the White House.
You'd land on the lawn.
Land on the South Lawn at the White House and travel to Camp David. So he would return on Sundays, and usually it was about 2 o'clock. So my very first mission with him as a crew chief, I remember distinctly, and they give you a little cue, there's the United States flag, but there's also a flag of the President of the United States. So when his motorcade is coming, they lower the flag. That's my cue, my signal to pop to attention, get ready, he's coming. And beaming with pride, thinking about my father, what he suffered in World War II to make this country the greatest country. He was part of the greatest generation. And my mom, even working downtown during World War II for Bosch & Lomb, for optics for the military. A sense of pride, deep pride.
Your father, just real quick, how did he serve?
He served in the United States Army. He, unfortunately, suffered 2 different injuries, a bullet wound and shrapnel wound, and he was awarded 2 Purple Hearts. He was also awarded a Silver Star for bravery in action in the war.
In Europe or Japan?
On the European theater of operations.
Who was his general?
A person by the name of Maurice Rose.
Okay. How wonderful. Well, yes. Joe, I'm going to shake your hand already. Thank you for your service.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
From a very distinguished family, and wow, it's so impressive that you were assigned presidential duty. That obviously means our country placed a lot of faith in you, and you're still a very young man. So you served 4 years until 1982, And after you were discharged, then what?
Well, my reason for ending my enlistment, everything went well, and I had my enlistment ended in July, and I always wanted to attend school, college, and so I opted to complete my service, and I enrolled at the University of Texas at El Paso. I did that for 2.5 years, if you can believe this or not, but I was a mechanical engineering major.
Really? Wow, you really went for it.
But anyways, that was fun, but then one day I decided, that's not necessarily what I want to be doing for the rest of my life. And so that was okay. And then someone told me, hey Joe, the city of El Paso is hiring for police officers. And I can tell you right now, never in my life would I ever considered being a police officer. There's just no way. Now, one of my older brothers was a sheriff's deputy, so he would tell me different stories and things like that. So eventually I said, I need a job, I need an income, let's try it. And yes, sure enough, I signed up, but I was a little bit too late on that Monday when I went. They told me they had closed at 5. So anyways, I signed up for something else. They gave me what's called a job interest card. They mailed it to my house. Went to take the test at the Civic Center. There were like 750 people there for like 35 positions, and I was like overwhelmed. Good luck, but okay. Anyways, took the test. They told us, don't call us, we'll call you. The time came for that date, and so I hadn't received no phone call, so I said I might as well called City Hall. And so I went, the lady says, oh yes, we've been sending you certified letters to your home. And I said, well, where? And I'm right here right now. And she goes, oh, you need to come down here like right now. So I went down there, and she's like, congratulations, you scored like number 18 on the exam out of 750 people. And I was like, wow, that's
18 out of 750 applicants?
Yes, and I was like, wow, this is just wonderful. Thank you very much, but what was the delay? And I just happened to ask her, not knowing everything. I said, hey, because the test is already completed, do you mind if I look at the exam and the questions and the answers? Oh, no. So I was able to determine a few questions were mismarked or not corrected. And so I went from number like 18 to like number 12. And so I was like, hey, that's fantastic. That's very, very nice.
That's pretty.
So
pretty
anyways, I went through all the other components of the background, the physical exam, the medical exam, everything else, and I found myself day one in the academy.
Excellent. So what year are we talking about here?
This is March of 1985.
85. So you are how old?
I am just turned 25.
Okay. And so you served from 1985 until what year?
I did with the city until 2007.
1985 until 2007. So that's 22 years?
Yes,
on
correct.
the force. Okay. That's a long time. So take us through your career as a police officer.
Okay, well, I'll tell you this right now. To me, in my sole opinion, is the best thing about being a police officer is that there's never 2 days that were the same. I never had 2 days that were the same. Every day was a different challenge. Every day was a different opportunity. You saw people, you met people, you helped people, you arrested people. Unfortunately, you took them into custody. They violated the law.
But you were always respected.
Always, and try to be, yes, definitely. But anyways, I did 4 years as a officer in the Northeast Regional Command, or I guess back then it was the Northeast Substation on Hondo Pass. No longer exists. Then I went ahead, promoted to detective. And so at that time, I didn't know exactly where I was going to be. Pretty much when you become a detective, they give you like a generalist assignment. You could be in burglary, you can be in auto theft, you can be in forgery, bunco, whatever. But I really don't know how, but I'm going to probably credit the lieutenant there, a gentleman by the name of Paul Salcedo, also a United States Marine. And there was a death unattended that happened just before I got promoted. And he was there on a cold winter morning. And he pulled me aside, asked me a ton of questions. I answered all of them. And I guess that was the deciding factor. He says, I'm going to bring this man into homicide, because a lot of times you would have to earn the time as a detective.
So you became a detective, and immediately you find yourself a detective in homicide.
That's correct.
What year was that?
1989
And how long did you serve as a homicide detective?
for 4 years.
Wow. And what was that like? You've seen
Oh.
everything.
They say truthfully that we do God's work, and I believe that. And so, same thing, it wasn't like how it is now. There wasn't really any Google. So I would go to the Barnes & Noble, I would go to the public libraries, I would go to different places, bookstores, and I would buy books on firearms, knife wounds, the autopsy, crime scene, just everything. And I had a library at my home, and I would read, I would study. I also, in part of my training as a detective, I would go to court, and I would watch trials and see. Back then in El Paso, I'm going to say we had some outstanding trial attorneys that were charismatic. Legal acumen was on point, and they walked and they talked like they knew what they were doing. And I said, one day I'm going to go against them, and I am, and I did. And I need to prepare to go against these people. And so in my career, I'm going to call it where you're a case agent, where you're called out, you go to the crime scene, you identify some evidence, you also detain some witnesses, you identify the witnesses, you take their statements, you interview them. There's also the suspect. You make a case out of it, and then you go forward to trial, at least how it was back then, okay? And I can tell you, I know the district attorney's office was there. Back then, it was Steve Simmons, a gentleman, and he ran a tight ship. I mean, he was, to me, a very good leader and a very good district attorney. And he trained his attorneys how to do the job very well.
Right. So in your 4 years as a homicide detective, from 89 to 93?
Approximately, yes, sir.
Yeah. You must have seen some terrible things because you are called on the scene. The mess is right there in front of you. You've probably seen murders of children. You've seen awful things, I imagine. And how do you deal with that psychologically? I mean, how do you sleep with that kind of a career?
Well, there's many ways to do it. I can tell you, I know I trust in the Lord and pray and give me the strength, give me the confidence, give me the resilience to move forward, to continue. Like I said earlier, we're doing God's work.
And your faith has been important to you in your career.
Oh yes, definitely. Very, very, very much. And not just my career, but in other things as well. And so great things were happening. And like I said, as a case agent, I had a very high clearance rate in my homicides, over in the 90s, maybe 92, 94%, which is, I don't know if anyone else can touch that. Maybe they'll brag and they say they could probably do better, but those are the old timers. But I did learn from a lot of those people as well. But I also did my way of doing things. And like I said, we never really, they're like today, there's what's called a DIMS process, where the district attorney intake management system, where you must contact an attorney, an assistant district attorney, and he or she blesses your case. Hey, we're going to accept this for prosecution. It wasn't that way back then. Hey, you did the case, you present the case. Sometimes, yes, it was returned for more work, but okay, you did the more work and you continue. And it was a great job satisfaction.
So you finished in 93 as a detective, as a homicide detective. What did you do next in the police?
Well, I remained as a detective, but I went to the Internal Affairs Division. Mm-hmm. And so people ask you, why Internal Affairs? Well, they're policing the police.
That's important.
It's administratively, okay? And so yes, I had a lot of criminal experience, but I also wanted some administrative experience as well. So I did go I was selected to go to Internal Affairs. At that time, there was a gentleman, Sergio Martinez, who was the lieutenant at that time, and I'd known him from patrol when he was a sergeant. And yes, he did pick me up, and very different type of investigation that you're doing, because a lot of times those officers may be working graveyards where you're working days. They may have different days off. They take holidays. They're in court. But anyways, you still need to do the job. You still need to do it well.
Did you ever have to build a case against a bad cop?
Well, I'm not going to say a bad cop, but I will say that things that needed to be done correctly. Without getting into the specifics and naming a name, so let's just say a police officer did not help a victim of a sexual assault, sexual assault. So that person was written up, rightfully so.
Right.
And so I'm the one that got the case. And so to me, in that case was a weak case. But the upper administration already said, hey, we're going to deem this person whatever discipline they were going to give him. And they give him it in like a suspension in hours. And so I said, no, we need to work some more this case. So I went back, even though I inherited this case, but I went back, hey, let's do this. Let's talk to more witnesses. Let's try and get more. So not only, and then of course, this officer appealed, which they have the right to do it. They appealed. And it's not that I have anything against this officer. I'm just doing my job. But, I'm not sure the right word, strangely enough, the arbitrator, based on what I presented at their hearing, not only did they agree with that finding, but they suspended that police officer additional hours.
Right.
Based on the work that I did. And
So-
that happened twice.
So you were in internal affairs starting in '93 until when?
Till 1994.
Oh, for a year. So take us, just let us know between '94 and the end of your career in '07. Generally, what were you up to?
Well, when I became a sergeant as a supervisor, and so I did. And that was fun. That was exciting. And all of a sudden you're supervising your own, which was different, but it was a good thing for me. And so my last 3 years, I said, I'm going to go to what's called the B shift or the baker shift. And so you basically work like 7 o'clock at night to 3 in the morning with Sundays and Mondays off. And I did that for 3 years. And I did that for two different reasons. Number one, my father was getting up in age. And so he was having significant health issues. He needed care, he needed attendance. And so I opted, yes, I'll work at night, sleep a little bit, and take care of my fatherly duties, but at the same time, go take care of my father to a point as much as possible, take him to his medical appointments, shower him, shave him, whatever, and things like that. But and then I also went back to school to finally get my degree.
Right.
And so that was different as well. But
When you went back to UTEP?
no, I ended up going to another college, but that's still okay. And so anyways, I had fun as the B shift sergeant. I had a great group of officers who were highly motivated, I'm going to say trained by me and others, but we outperformed shifts and statistics. And I really don't like talking about statistics, but we issued more citations, subject checks, vehicle checks. We recovered stolen vehicles. We located murder suspects. We worked up cases amongst us, and we had a traffic officer who did accident investigations, issued traffic citations. I mean, we led the way in the Northeast Regional Command. At that time, it was a command, and so twice, the Officer of the Year came from the Northeast Regional Command back to back, and they came from my shift. And I was very proud of that. And then we had other officers wanting to come to that, to not only to that station, but to that shift, which I think was a very, very good sign.
Well, thank you for your service as a police officer as well, Joe.
Yes, sir.
So 2007, you leave the police, and then what?
I go work for the Socorro Independent School District, also as a police officer, and I did that for approximately 6 years. But one of the things that I try to pride myself is, instead of, back then as a new employee, they would give you a handbook. Let's just say from what's called, the Socorro School District, but they'd also send you a handbook from the pension system, the teacher retirement system of Texas. So in my spare time, I would read this. I even called them and said, send me another one. They're like, didn't you get the first one? Yes, but send me another one. And I would have a working copy and I have a file copy, and I would read and highlight and yellow and green and blue and whatever. And I determined that I could use a proportionate retirement system that I could retire. So eventually I did work 6 years. I put in my 4 years for the Marine Corps into that pension, so it allowed me to retire in 10 years. So I retired, quote unquote,
In
early
2013.
in 2013.
Okay, so let's fast forward then to your time as a city council representative. What was the date that you assumed office? Do you remember?
Can't tell you the exact date, but it would have been January of 2021.
Okay, and I remember that Sam Morgan had been the District 4 representative. I will tell you that I began being a supporter of Sam Morgan, but then he abandoned his entire campaign platform and just went all out in a completely different direction. In any case, he got in a lot of trouble with the law. That was a big mess. He ended up losing, of course. And initially, I supported Caleb Warnock for District 4, and then he withdrew from that race because he had some kind of technicality, some issue he had to pull out. And I'm thinking to myself, well, is there anybody decent who's going to run for District 4 against Sam Morgan, who was going to run anyway in spite of all of his issues? And somebody said, well, there's this guy, Joe Molinar, and I called him on the phone and we talked, and I immediately liked you. And got behind you right away, as well as my friends, and one of the best decisions we ever made. So you've been a District 4 rep since January 2021. January 2025 will be a full 4-year term. Let's talk a little bit about some of the things that you've done since you've been a District 4 rep, some of the key things. Number one, you voted to fire Tommy Gonzalez.
Yes.
Any hesitation there?
No, and I co-sponsored that item on the agenda with City Representative Brian Kennedy.
Right. And I know that we cannot talk about the reasons why he was terminated because that is sealed, and we absolutely respect that. But you were one of the reps who voted to terminate the city manager on February 28th, 2023. That was a pretty big deal. You also opposed building an arena in Duranguito.
That's correct.
Why?
Very simple, because it was not the right thing to do. There's history there. All the wrong reasons pointed to Duranguito. It needs to be preserved. It needs to be changed. And good things will happen in due time. Okay. But I did not like building an arena there on top of what's our history for the city of El Paso.
I can't say I disagree, and you've been an absolute ally on that issue since the day you put in your hat to run for office, and we're grateful to you for that position. The city of El Paso, for no fault of your own, assumed a huge amount of debt in the years before you were elected. More than $500 million in certificates of obligation, non-voter approved debt, was brought online just in the few years leading up to 2021, especially during the time of DeMargo. Really an enormous amount of debt. The city is now in debt something like $2.3 billion, $852 million in principal and interest on 10 COs that we're going to be paying down for a very long time. And of course, taxes have been going up for El Pasoans across the board. The city, when Tommy assumed office, was 25% of our property tax bill, and now it's a little bit over 29%. And so the city has grown, spent more, indebted itself more, and then you come online and you start pushing back against the debt and pushing back against the taxation. Why is that? What's your philosophy of debt and spending?
To me, the certificates of obligation is like, I'm going to the bank, I'm going to take the bank's money, but it really belongs to you, and I'm going to spend it the way I need to spend it or the way I want to spend it. But you are going to repay that loan eventually. And no matter what the interest rate, no matter what the terms of that loan are, you're still going to be paying. And I'm going to use it for one of the things that I want. Whether you agree with it or whether you disagree with it, I'm going to be spending that money.
Right. So you're with the taxpayers. You believe that the taxpayers, the voters, should be able to decide whether or not they want to issue large amounts of debt.
That's absolutely correct. Yes, sir.
That should be on a ballot.
It was a ballot. Trust me.
Yes. Well, we're totally with you on that as well. Let's talk about TIRZ 13. That's Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone 13, which was established some years ago in your district.
In my district, District 4.
And this was part of the famous Great Wolf Lodge land swap. Great Wolf Lodge was going to establish a resort in northwest El Paso, right off I-10, on 44 acres of land owned by Paul Foster. And to make that deal happen, Paul Foster was going to exchange that 44 acres for 2,313 acres in your district. And we were told that both of these parcels were worth 18 million. There were major questions about that, of course. And we were also told by the city attorney in 2018 that if the Great Wolf Lodge deal failed, if Great Wolf Lodge pulled out of this contract, that there would be no land swap. That was said publicly, I'm just going to say it, by Carla Neiman on the record in City Council. Well, as it turns out, Great Wolf Lodge pulled out, but somehow the land swap happened anyway. And Mr. Foster got his 2,313 acres. He partnered with a guy, I think in Dallas. He's planning to build 9,500 units there, homes that are sort of middle to upper level homes. Nothing wrong with that. But the city then created and then modified TERS 13, creating tax advantages in that area that were so generous that people are just like, whoa, we're talking about well over $500 million in property tax forgiveness over the course of a half century for Mr. Foster and his business partner. Do you think the city gave away too much on that deal?
It was a very sweet deal. I was not privileged to know what the actual ins and outs. I wasn't in office at that time, never attended an executive session meeting. So I was a constituent watching the news and reading about it and kind of just wondering what in the world is happening to our city.
Okay, so not in favor.
Not in favor of the way it happened, no.
It could have been structured better for the taxpayer.
It could have been a lot better.
Okay. The city of El Paso has been in the entertainment business now for about a decade and a half. We've been given a ballpark, which requires $4.2 million a year to keep it solvent from the hotel occupancy tax. We got trolleys, thanks to Peter Schwartzbein and his friends. We've got 4 water parks, which somehow came out of the quality of life bond. They're very top heavy, very expensive. Of course, there was a push to build a multi-purpose performing arts center, a basketball arena in downtown. There's some talk about a possible soccer stadium. Joe, should the government be in the business of entertainment?
I'm going to say not necessarily. In other words, I'll jump to this right now. Just this past week, 6 days ago, we entered into a contract with Notes Live to build in the Sunset Amphitheater in Northeast El Paso District 4, where the former site of Cohen Stadium was, at the intersection of Gateway North and Cohen. Is that going to be entertainment? Yes, it is.
But it's a private project.
It is a private project. So, yes, I supported that.
Yes. Now, let's talk about that, actually. That's a really big deal. 12,500 seat amphitheater by Notes Live. This is a Colorado-based company. They build amphitheaters and arenas, that kind of thing, across America. A successful company. They are going to invest all the capital and assume all of the risk to build the structure and to maintain and operate it. This is very different from the ballpark and very different from the proposal to build a downtown multi-purpose center. This is a private project that is receiving $30.6 million in incentives over a 20-year period. Those incentives do not include any cash handouts, right? It's some property tax forgiveness. It is TERS money from TERS 11 that goes back into the project, that the project generates. It is an even-handed, common sense series of incentives for a project that's going to generate over 2,000 jobs and $5.4 billion. You heard that correctly. $5.4 billion with a B like boy of dollars in economic impact for your district, right? How do you feel about this project?
It is a win-win-win project. And to me, a project is not necessarily the right term, because every time a project, there's a beginning and there's an end. We don't want this to end. We want this to continue. You're absolutely correct. $5.4 billion economics for the city of El Paso. And really, I say it's going to be region. But here's the thing. Having been born, having lived, having worked in the Northeast, there's no other part of town that's like the Northeast part of town. going back to when Cohen Stadium was there as a baseball. The gentleman, I cannot think of his name, Paul. Anyways, he and his sister ran that just very well. Promotions, marketing, branding, they did a fantastic job. I attended those games. I also worked those games as a police officer. And I can tell you, there's people from Juarez, Chihuahua, Lordsburg, Las Cruces, Alamogordo, that would come to the city of El Paso and Northeast El Paso to watch a baseball game. And they did this all the time.
How did you feel about the demolition of Cohen?
I didn't enjoy that at all. It was like a part of me was gone.
That was the most senseless thing I've ever seen.
But here's the thing. So it drew people together. Not just from, and also the west side, the east side, central side, northeast side. And so all these, it had, like all roads lead to Cohen. They really do. And they're there. And, people are already complaining about the parking. They're talking about the traffic. Well, there's one spot where there's residential, but it's not like, it's not going to impact anything. I can tell you, having worked it, we cleared that out in 20 minutes. If you knew what you were doing as police officers and traffic control, traffic management, it got cleared. However, now it's going to be a little bit different because we're going to give people options in restaurants and businesses to come and enjoy before the concert that they can enjoy after the concert. So that push to get people out is not going to necessarily be there. It's going to be a different way of doing things, a different business model, a different opportunity. It's going to have some challenges, but it's going to be a different thing. And when this company says they're going to use these people from electrical, plumbers, HVAC, landscapers, hey, we are it's going to create more jobs, more economic growth, sales tax, liquor, it's going to happen.
Yeah, and I'm all in favor because, the ballpark was built without voter approval, by the way, right? Joyce Wilson's administration with the developers just went in and helped themselves to $64 million to build that thing. Then, of course, demolished City Hall and the Insights Museum, which is $14.5 million in assets gone, and then moved the city into half a dozen different locations, each which had to be separately renovated. The price tag of the ballpark, if you add everything up, is well over $150 million with all the subsidies and everything else. And we're going to be on the hook for millions of dollars a year for the next couple of decades, in terms of hotel occupancy tax subsidies. Who knows if the general fund will have to step in again. But this is very different. This is a private business building the structure and maintaining and operating it. The city assumes zero risk. The terms of the incentives are linked to benchmarks for achievement. We've got nothing to lose here.
Exactly. Think about this, Max. Just think about it. To your viewers, think about this. Two Soto brothers started helping their mom sell burritos, food truck. They opened up a business, The Shack, McRae, went to Loop 375, went to Viscount. They finally came to the Northeast. We need you in the Northeast. We need you in the Northeast. They came. You go to The Shack on pretty much on any given day, but primarily, let's say Thursday through Sunday, that place is packed. Good luck finding a parking space, but that place is packed. Right across the street, 4800 Woodrow Bean, you have Olive Garden. Erica Amador doing a fantastic job there. Family-oriented, good food, same thing. It's there. We got Marco's Pizzas, other businesses that are thriving in that thing. We're going to have a Union Draft House. All of that area is going to be transformed. It's going to grow and it's going to go significantly. And we, the taxpayers, are going to see a change, a positive change coming to us.
That's wonderful. It's really good to hear. Things are obviously moving in the right direction. But bringing that amphitheater into your district, that is the biggest win of any single city council rep since I've been in El Paso. Talk about bagging the elephant. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. I do credit Karina Brzgala, her team at Economic Development, our interim city manager, Kerry Weston, our mayor, Honorable Oscar Leeser, the other people that voted in support of it, the city council people, thank you very much.
Why did Rep. Hernandez vote against it?
I don't know.
One person.
I have no idea. I have not had any discussion with her on that.
Okay. In any case, let's come back to the MPC for a moment. That's still floating out there. You've got $180 million of buying power. And once I prevailed in my litigation, the idea is to build it somewhere else, but it has to be downtown because the bond ordinance stipulates that $180 million of bond money to build an MPC must be expended in downtown. So when Joyce Wilson says, well, why don't we do it at Haskins? You can't do it at Haskins. The $180 million must be spent in downtown. So what does that mean? You're looking for a site. The best you can do is the Union Depot, and you're looking at that, and now you're learning, well, maybe it's not the best site, right? I mean, what do you think is the future of that project?
I really don't know. It's way too early to tell. I'm still living in the moment for the Notes Live and the Sunset Amphitheater. And let me just add to the amphitheater. I know you're talking about the MPC, but you have the eastern slope of the Franklin Mountains, Casner Range National Monument, just enacted by President Biden March of 2023. It's a beautiful location. And like I said at the press conference, in the morning, 6 o'clock, go watch the sunrise hit those mountains. It's a purple mountain majesty. If you don't get up early, make it a point to get up early. Now, contrary, when the sun starts setting, imagine having an event there and the sun is going down. What fantastic view are all those, the crowds, the attendees are going to be able to see. You're going to have photographers coming and they're going to be mesmerized by everything that's happening in that area.
Right. Excellent. Let me just interrupt 1 second. I want to just double check our equipment here. Make sure we're good. We're perfect. 41 minutes. So, how have you enjoyed your time on City Council? Let me ask you first this. What have been the positives?
Well, Max, I can tell you, I don't like my job.
Ooh, okay. Let's hear more about that.
I don't like it. I absolutely love my job.
There.
I absolutely love my job.
Right.
I enjoy getting up. I enjoy saying my prayers. I enjoy getting my cup of coffee. I enjoy saying, what am I going to tackle first? What am I going to do? Work with my team and make sure we're doing good things. We have team meetings. What have we done? How are we doing? Did we do well? Did we not do well? How are we progressing? And it's just a very great opportunity to serve the constituents of District 4, but also all of El Paso. Because my vote does not just affect District 4, it affects everybody in the city of El Paso.
That's right.
And it's just a blessing to know there, hey, you're trying to do a good job. And yes, the hours are long on that day, as I will tell you, but hey, that's what you signed up for.
Since Tommy Gonzalez left, and now, of course, there's been an exodus of upper administrators, Tracy Jerome, Elizabeth Triggs, Sam Rodriguez, and others, gone. How is morale in the city?
Morale is fine. Morale is good. Morale is great. And so, flip your question just a little bit earlier. When in 2014, June of 2014, there was an exodus there too.
Of course. When Tommy came in, I can count at least 8 upper administrators who left because when the voters change the composition of city council can then change the composition of staff, right? Staff responds to city council responds to the voters. So Tommy comes in, there are going to be some structural changes. Tommy goes out, there are going to be more structural changes. Natural, right?
Exactly. And when we appoint a new city manager, when that will come exactly, I can't tell you because I don't know, but who that person will be, they will in turn make some changes. You will see some retirements. You will see some attrition. And it's just a natural flow of doing business. There will be some people exiting. There might be some people being promoted, some people being transferred. But that is the form of government that the voters approved back in 2004 to 2005. That's what we have.
Mm-hmm. Do you support the city manager form of government?
No.
You do not?
No.
You'd go back to a strong mayor.
I have advocated twice to go back to the mayor council form of government.
You liked it better.
Yes.
And of course you know it because you worked for the city for a very long time.
Exactly. And here's the thing. So I have been involved because of my time with the city, but at the same time, let's just say at the old city hall, okay, one civic center or one plaza. I'm not sure what the exact address, but anyways, meeting with back then Mayor John Cook in his office, Carl Robinson in his office, and there would be times where different people would come in and he said, hold on, Joe, let me make this call. And he would call, I'm just going to say, for example, someone from the environmental service, back then I think it was called solid waste management or something. And, Henry or John or Mary, whatever, can you help me out with this? I've got a constituent and they're needing this. Can you take care of that? Oh, yes. And of course, you don't hear the other side of the conversation. Can you get back to me in 2 weeks? He had that authority to call a department head and have them inquire and get that response back to him.
Because he was the executive?
Because he was part of the job. He was part of the process. I don't have that authority anymore.
Right.
I can't be calling department heads and say, hey, do this for me. No.
Right. The only risk, of course, is if you get a bad mayor or an incompetent mayor who in short order can mess everything up, right?
That's true. In theory, that is correct. But hopefully, good people, great people are running for mayor that says, instead of trying to line their pockets and trying to establish a name for themselves, become the first this, become the first that they have the vision to say, this is where we're at, this is my goals, this is our goals, and we're going to make strides. We're going to work together. We're going to develop a nice team and say, hey, this is what we're looking for in the best interest of the community. Not to line your pockets, not to say, hey, thank you very much. No.
Right. You also serve on FOAC, correct?
That's correct.
The financial.
Financial.
Right, the Financial Oversight and Audit Committee, FOAC.
Yes, sir.
Which found irregularities with the use of city-issued gas cards, city-issued P cards, as well as travel for city business, including flights. How do you feel about these revelations that came out of these audits that were driven by Edmundo Calderon, this chief city auditor, on gasoline, on P cards? And we're talking about at least one current and one former city rep who, in the estimation of the city auditor, went overboard, and both ended up being reprimanded. How do you feel about all that business?
In my wallet today, I have a P card. But I also had a P card when I was a lieutenant with the Paso Police Department. I knew that card was not a carte blanche to spend, to do this, to do that for my benefit. It's for certain things that are authorized in policy by the city of El Paso. Given a gas card, I said, no, I'm not even, my first year I didn't even use it at all. I derive a nice income from 2 pensions. I was being paid, compensated by the city again. So no, I don't need to use that gas card.
Can I ask you about how much gas you buy a year with your gas card?
I couldn't tell you. I don't track that.
Right.
I just look at my gauge. If I need gas, I go get gas. This morning I put $21 in. So. My money.
Right. Okay. In any case, on the few occasions you do use a gas or a P card, it's for city business.
That's pretty much correct. Yes, sir. And so it's there, but I cannot believe someone gets a gas card and, hey, we're going to use it for this card or this, my other second card, and I'm going to probably use a third card because they gave it to me.
Right. I mean, I'll tell you that as a taxpayer, I'm extremely grateful to you and Brian Kennedy and the other members of FOAC for conducting these audits and straightening things out. And we absolutely need oversight within the city, just like you provided oversight when you were within the police department. Is there any difference?
No, there's not. And speaking of that, to me, I can tell you when Mr. Calderon called me and he's telling me over the phone, hey, this is what we found, blah, 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 and I believe this and think about that. And I'm like, time out. Where are you at? In my office. Well, I can tell you, I've never even been to his office. I didn't even know where his office was. So, where's your office? I'll go to your office. So anyways, he took me upstairs to his office. And just like this table here in front of us, he spread everything out and said this and said that and showed me and highlighted this and whatever. And I started taking notes once again. and we forgot that I was retired as a lieutenant for the El Paso Police Department. I've done investigations over and over. Based on my training as a police officer, as a peace officer for the state of Texas, there's violations of the law there. Absolute violations of the law. Now, I'm not a police officer anymore. I'm a city councilman. But what happened and what did happen still is very interesting. People say the Texas Rangers were investigating. I don't know. I've never seen a report.
Well, we know that there was outside law enforcement because the
Okay, but
attorney said
who?
so.
And I know the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, was supposed to be looking into it. Okay, well, and I know the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the way they work, you give me the information, but they never give you anything. That's what they do. I've worked with them many times. I have respect for them, but I don't necessarily agree with that. But either way, whatever happened to them? And so now we say, hey, this case or cases are in the office of our Mr. Jaime Esparza. And so,
Right.
I don't know.
Federal Attorney's Office.
Yes, thank you very much. And so, what's happening there? What's not happening there? Will indictments be coming? I don't know.
They're very slow, the feds, anyway. They take forever.
Well, the thing is, to me, is clearly, there's violations of the law.
Yeah, but the El Paso Police refused to turn over anything to the DA. And that's a whole nother issue. And don't comment, you don't need to, but I will. The El Paso Police did not turn over anything to the DA. Don't know why. All right. So, what are the negatives? What are the negatives as a city council representative? What don't you like about your job? Dirty politics.
I will say that a few people attempted to ostracize me. A few people attempted to silence me. You remember that? We told you about it. How could you forget? You were there. And no, I wasn't there. And no, you didn't tell me about it. Because if you had told me about it, I would have remembered it. Small little tactics like that. Oh, we're going to inundate you with all kinds of information, which is fine. Hey, we're going to tell you what to do and how to do it. No, you're not.
Are you talking about people within the city or outside of the city?
In the city.
Okay. What about pressure from outside the city? Do you have people breaking your door down with their special interests saying, here's how you're going to vote?
No.
They know you better than that.
No.
You're not one of those guys.
No.
Right. Yeah, as a matter of fact, your contributors have been, fairly good people in that sense. They're not the kind of people who demand something in return for the money that they contribute. That's not an issue with you.
No.
Right. Let's talk about how you've been treated by the media. There was one issue that sort of dragged you through the mud a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about that. I want to give you a chance to discuss. Now, my understanding is that there was a luncheon, a Thanksgiving daytime luncheon, hosted by the city downtown. November of which year?
2022.
November of 2022, so about a year and a half ago. And there was live music. You're seated at a big round table. There's something like 10 of you at the table. And you ask a fellow employee to dance twice, right? And she files a sexual harassment claim against you with the federal government. In addition to that...
with the city, human resources.
With human resources, with the city. And then claims that you called her babe several years ago once, and also claims that at some point during the luncheon you stood up, walked up behind her, touched her shoulders, and whispered something like, well, I'm going to tell Tommy that you didn't dance with me. Okay. Which is bullshit. That did not happen. Because I completely believe you. And then somehow the video system that is surveilling hallways and spaces in the building, the videotape is not available, which would have been exculpatory. That's gone. And then in the end, you receive a letter of admonition which is the lowest level of penalty you can receive, but nevertheless, you get slapped on the hand, I think, unjustly. I think it's complete and total BS, because the only thing that can be proven, as far as I can tell, is that you asked a woman to dance twice and she felt uncomfortable, and there's absolutely nothing else that can be absolutely proven here. Am I wrong? Am I missing something?
You're absolutely correct, but let me just add to a couple of things. So yes, there was a table. In fact, well, I'm just going to estimate at least 28 to 3,000 city employees. It is a city-sponsored event. During the daytime, it's a luncheon. Inside the convention center, there's a large stage, if you will. There is a band. There is an MC. At that time, Claudia Lujan from the Human Resources was the MC. At some point, they ask the mayor to speak. He gets up, he starts speaking, he says what he says. Our city manager gets up, he says something, a few words. The music starts, they start serving the lunch. The MC then starts doing raffles. Okay, that's what they're doing. Okay, we're sitting there. The music's playing. I can't tell you exactly what the songs were, but let's just call it top 40. But they're singing, they're playing. And so at some point I turn to my left, my right, whatever, but I see a certain person, and she's, call it dancing in her chair. Over the course of X amount of songs, she's still dancing in chair. So I said, yeah, perhaps she'd like to dance. So yes, I did go over there and ask her to dance twice. Didn't assault her, didn't steal anything from her, didn't threaten her, nothing.
Were you rude?
No. I did ask someone else to dance. She said no. Okay. But what the media doesn't tell you is that there was another person that said yes, that she would like to dance with
you. You danced with somebody?
And I certainly did dance.
Did she file a sexual harassment suit?
No, she did not. And so we danced the remainder of the song. I walked her back to her table, thanked her very much. She thanked me. I went back to my table. We continued eating, socializing. Everything is fine. At some point, the luncheon ends.
Right.
Okay. So as we're leaving, let's say get my coat on. So I'm going to say the table directly north of me. Other city employees don't know who they are. I don't know where they work, but they're there. And as I'm turning around, putting on my coat, a woman asked me, "Why didn't you ask me to dance?" Kind of caught off guard, speechless. Sorry, I didn't ask you to dance.
Hell, Joe, I would have asked you to dance.
I didn't even see her. I never even saw her. Same table.
Okay.
Another female.
So daytime, no alcohol served.
No alcohol.
In plain sight of everybody.
Plain sight of
everybody. You ask a
everyone.
woman to dance twice, she's uncomfortable. Okay.
Yes.
And before you know it, you're being dragged through the media. You got El Paso Matters all over you. Oh my God,
But
this and that.
All of that stuff, and mysteriously, there's no video footage. It's all been gone. It's all deleted. It's all...
Right.
Anything that could help my case was gone.
What about, let's talk about something else the media didn't talk about, okay? You listening? Are you listening? Pay attention. I'm watching you, okay? What about the timing? Wasn't there something unusual about the timing of this complaint?
That's absolutely correct. So, this was in November. So the complaint was filed the following week.
November 2022.
And so...
It's the election season.
So they started an investigation, hired an outside counsel, local, which I don't have very much faith in that person's abilities to investigate. But anyways, and so they came back with a report and it was completed. So it was either completed at the end of January, at the end of December, early part of January. So January, February, why wasn't this item put on the agenda? Strategically, the item referenced the city manager's contract was an executive session item, and that item against me was there as well. So, what happened?
So this supposedly happened in November 2022. The city manager was fired on February 28th, 2023, and somehow the issue of your harassment came up at the very moment you're considering firing the city manager.
Correct.
Like at that moment.
Correct. Your timing was
Wow. Could it be
impeccable timing.
Could it be that somebody in the upper administration was behind this, or that there could be some kind of political motivation behind the complaint against you? Why didn't this come up earlier? Why was the timing exactly that? These are questions, right?
Questions that remain unanswered.
That remain unanswered. Did you have anything on that chair over there?
Well, here's the thing. So I have been alive for quite some time.
More than me, but only a little bit.
Yes, sir. And so one of the things I got to tell you is that I enjoy life. I enjoy my life. I've been blessed. I've been blessed abundantly.
La vida es buena.
Overall. And part of that is music. Part of that is dancing. So in front of me, you see this record album, vinyl for the young folks here, vinyl. The group is called Gonzales, and the title is I Haven't Stopped Dancing Yet. And that sums up my life there, because I haven't stopped dancing.
Wow, it sounds like a dangerous pursuit.
It's what's in me.
Right, exactly. And was there another Gonzales who was fired and then went off to Midland, Texas? Okay, forget that. Yeah, anyway. All right, so what about the future? You are up for re-election. If you're re-elected, and I hope that you will be, you would start your new term on January 7th, 2025, for another illustrious 4 years. What would you like to accomplish in the future?
For the district, I'd like to continue paving of the streets.
Okay.
Recently, with the help, assistance of our interim city manager, the Colonel Kerry Weston, we've had multiple conversations on that.
Do we like Kerry Weston?
Yes, I do.
He's great, isn't he?
I think he's a strong leader. I think he's a fair leader. I think he listens to you. He provides some insight, and he tells you, I can do this, I can't do that. Let's work on this. Let's try this first.
He's also brilliant.
He is his acumen is very sharp man.
Yes.
You know.
So paved streets, what else?
Anyways, see the completion of the Sunset Amphitheater. I'm telling you.
They're opening in March 2026.
Well, hopefully they do. And anything can happen. I'll be happy if they open up in April. But let's just make sure that everything there is completed the right way.
Just as an aside, I was there at the press conference last week when it was announced that they were going to build this thing, and the builders said that they're going to finish in 23 months, which is March 2026. Actually, it's more like 22 months. And I commented right there in front of everybody, well, that's less time than it took for the city to plant a dozen trees in San Jacinto Plaza back in 2015. It's true, right? That's so fast. Do you think they can finish it that quickly?
Well, here's the good thing. They have experience. They've had already time to, it's like, you get better adept.
And they're the private sector.
Yeah. You build it once, it might take you a while. You build it a second time, you learn from that first one. The third one, you learn from the first and second one. So this one should be a learning curve that is very minimal. And the fact that we're here in El Paso, we have great weather, we have great people. It's going to be something that you will not see. And like I said, the businesses along Trans Mountain, they're flourishing. They really are. The businesses along Gateway South, over there by Martin Luther King, they're flourishing too. And we have different pockets that still need attention. We still need the connection for Sean Haggerty and Angora Loop. We still need on US 54 the bridge going over Sean Haggerty. That needs to be completed. We still need a traffic light at the intersection of Sean Haggerty and Rushing. That's been in the works. Things that we've been fighting for a long time. Working with TxDOT, working with other people. It's like we need to prioritize. What can we do? How can we do it? Let's get it done. So people say, Joe, what have you done for the Northeast? I'm going to say I've done a lot. Absolutely a lot.
Yeah, you're always going to have detractors that say, you didn't pave this street, or you didn't put a speed bump here. What's the matter with you?
Yeah,
right? You get that, right?
Yes.
But I see you holding weekly meetings. You're very engaged with your constituents and available. I mean, I'm not even in your district. You've taken every single phone call I've ever put out to you.
Except when your daughter was born.
Except when my daughter was born. I was incommunicado for a short time.
Right.
So let me ask you about another current issue, the water impact fees. And if you're not decided, that's fine too, but I want to ask you. This is very much on people's minds at the moment. There's a proposal on the table to charge developers the full cost of building water and sewage infrastructure in undeveloped parts of the city that they want to develop and build upon. Up until now, for a long time, it's been the taxpayers at large, the ratepayers at large, who through their water bills have financed water and sewage infrastructure for new developments. And the question is, should the developers be required to pay for their own stuff? Yes or no? Because if you do require them to pay for that, obviously that gets built into the cost of a new home. Homes will be a little bit more expensive, and that is just, as far as I'm concerned, the way the free market works. I'll just say from the outset, I'm absolutely in favor of having the developers pay the impact fees because it's their developments, and that's the American way. That's just me. Where do you stand, Joe?
Let's make the developer pay. But what does he do with that payment that they're making? They pass it on to the consumer, the new home buyer. That whatever amount you want to choose, that home buyer is going to buy that home eventually, or they may not. Because I also hear that there's people that the price of homes are going up, that they cannot afford it. And so, okay, they build it and it just sits there. Is it generating property revenue for the city of El Paso? No, it's not. Is it fair to the new home buyer that they get swamped with this fee and they're going to pay thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars more? And so all of a sudden, some people may be able to afford it, some people may not be able to afford it. But you need new homes to go up in order to get the tax revenue coming in. Water is gold. That's what I say, because water is gold in El Paso. Recently talked to people from El Paso Water, retired people from El Paso Water, talked to realtors, went to visit 2 site visits in the Lower Valley. You'd be amazed at what they do. In the future, the cost of water is going to go up. We're not going to be able to stop that. I don't necessarily support it, but water is gold, water is life. And so therefore, what is the amount of that impact fee? Who knows? Because it's different. And if there would be some magical way that we could just get rid of it, that'd be great, but there's not.
Right. I just think that, any entrepreneur, any investor in the American Republic should be required to pay all the upfront costs without putting on the taxpayer anything. And if the homes are more expensive in that development as a result, it's the consumer who can then choose. I'm going to buy a home in Central, or I'm going to renovate an old building, or you know what? I'm going to move to Tallahassee, Florida. It's just, it's just built into the cost of doing business. But I know this is an ongoing debate, and
It's going to be coming up again.
Not necessarily decided at this particular moment. Joe, do you regret any of your votes?
Maybe a few.
That's normal, right?
I would say yes. I mean, in retrospect, can I say, hey, I probably should have voted a different way? I'm going to say, yeah. I mean, it's not like I'm going to have a stellar record to say, this is the best way of doing things, and look at Joe Molinar because of this. No, I'm a human being. Do you know the amount of research that goes into when they publish the agendas on Thursday? It's a lot of work, a lot of time,
every single
a lot of reading,
right? Yeah,
a lot of meetings. It's a lot of work, and then you got to learn about something all the time. Just like I learned about homicides, established myself in my own library. I established myself with different issues that affect the city as a city councilman, as a city representative.
Right. Got one more interesting question here. You have made one endorsement in this campaign cycle. Precinct 1, County Precinct 1, there are 3 candidates vying for that position. It's very important because the Commissioner's Court only has 5 people. So we're talking about the governance of El Paso County. So you've got the Democrat, Jacqueline Butler, who is really the establishment candidate, who will basically be very much like her current boss, Carlos Leon. You've got the Republican, Claudia Lizette Rodriguez, who has been reprimanded by the City Ethics Commission. She's a Republican, controversial on many different fronts. And then you've got the Libertarian, who is also a military veteran, Ryan Woodcraft, who is running on a fiscally responsible platform. And you have decided to endorse the Libertarian. Why?
Truth is, it's very simple. I've met Ryan a couple of times. We've had different meetings over time. I think his vision, his way of governance is the same that says, hey, you know what? We're here for that taxpayer. Right now, County Commissioner Holguin is the only one that sits on the County Commissioner's Court that has a thorough knowledge and fundamental understanding and knowledge of what her job is and responsibilities are. Once again, her vote affects people. It should not be that, hey, I'm paying attention to this special interest group. They gave me money, I should vote this way. Let's talk about over here. No. What are we doing for the entire community? The County of El Paso needs help. They are facing tremendous challenges. Why are we wanting to do other things that are not necessarily needed when they're wanting to pass this bond?
Right.
I don't agree with that. I just don't agree. You talk about water right now. Okay, well, we got city taxes, but we also have county taxes. We have the UMC. We have a community college. You have whatever local school district you belong to. Appraisals have just come out. People are upset. People are demanding justice. People are demanding accountability. They do not like the fact that their houses are being appraised at a higher value because they're going to pay more taxes. Some people are leaving the city of El Paso. They are not able to afford it.
I'm going to interject.
Yes.
I just want to remind our viewers that one city council rep, Cassandra Hernandez, actually stated in open session that she feels that the Central Appraisal District should appraise our homes at a higher value so that the city can farm more revenue. That was not a very popular thing to say or think, but anyway, go ahead.
I can tell you, Diana Kilgore, maybe perhaps David Stone, will be at our meeting this coming Friday to talk about that. Everyone's welcome to attend. That's at the Denny's at 4690 Trans Mountain Road. Please come out there, ask her your questions.
What time?
7:30 in the morning.
7:30 in the morning. That's every Friday, right?
That's correct.
Right. That's your district meeting.
Pretty much every Friday, yes.
Right.
Unless we have a meeting during the third Wednesday of the month.
Okay. And I want to make one more point along the lines you were just talking about. The city of El Paso, since January 2023, when Brian Kennedy was elected, Art Fura was elected, Canales was elected, has gone in a completely different direction, away from deficit spending to fiscal restraint and to taxpayer priorities. So this fiscal year, for the first time in at least a decade, no tax increase, no debt issuances. And now I'm learning that for next fiscal year, 2025, the 2025 fiscal year, the city is also going to try to get to no tax increase, no debt issuance. 2 years in a row, which is an extraordinary thing. Like the city is really pulling back and streamlining and consolidating and doing everything right, paving more streets, I can go on and on. Then you go to the county, which for a long time had been the fiscally responsible taxing entity, and all of a sudden they're going for a $500 million bond full of pork. They vote themselves double-digit raises for the third time since 2016, and they raised our taxes to the rollover rate, which is the highest tax rate before you have to go to the voters for permission. So they're just tax spend, except for Ileana Holguin. And as a member of the city council trying to lower our overall tax bill, seeing the county raise our overall tax bill, really nullifying what you've achieved, that must be frustrating, right?
It is. It really is. Because you got to think, what's going to happen to these people? I mean, when they get that appraisal and the notice in the mail, what do they think? Hey, honey, we got it in the mail again. What is going to happen? How are they going to pay for that?
Yeah, especially retired people.
Exactly.
And it affects veterans, too.
Veterans, the disabled. It affects every taxpayer here, every homeowner.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let me say this. So during our strategic planning session, I said a couple of things. I know we, the city of El Paso, have not completed certain projects, but we began new projects. I have a situation with that. Why do we keep spending money when we haven't even completed what we started?
Right.
We need to finish those projects. You know, some of those projects go on and on and on. For example, and I understand we can blame COVID, we can blame supply chain issues. The street light at the intersection of Sean Haggerty and Rushing. When I came in 2021, Councilman, you're going to have that in 2023. It's going to be done. Still hasn't been done. I went by there just the other day.
Right.
Still not done. Will it be done? Hopefully, but when? Where is it?
You're in favor of completing what we started before embarking on new adventures.
Definitely. It's just one of those things. And yes, I have been advocating for a hospital with OBGYN in the Northeast. Why? Because let's just say when William Bowman Army Medical Center was there, yes, they served the military, they served the retirees, and they did a fantastic job. But now you have William Bowman Army Medical Center on Spur 601. And so you have the Hospitals of Providence on Loop 375, you have the Hospitals of Providence on the west side on Wrestler. So yes, you do have two smaller hospitals in Northeast, one at Rick Husband and McCombs, and you have one on Cohen. But let's just say, for example, they will not treat you if you're OBGYN. If you get a motor vehicle accident, you break your leg, you might get triaged, and then later on you may be sent to another hospital. Does it happen all the time? No, it doesn't. But when that day comes that someone needs medical attention, life and death medical attention, emergency surgery, where are we going to put that person in?
Right.
They're going to be transferred to the nearest medical facility, whether it's UMC, back then call it the old Sierra Medical Center, Providence, I don't know. So we are without a hospital, and we need that one desperately. We, the city, are not in the business of building hospitals. We're not in the business of operating hospitals, but it's my vision to make sure that something at least gets started to have a hospital.
To bring together stakeholders and move in that direction. Right. Okay. Joe, let me ask you this. Again, I want to repeat that we endorse Joe Molinar for re-election, and we'll come back to this, but come October, when early voting begins, I hope that you will consider voting for Joe, and of course on Election Day on November 5th. Joe, where can people go to donate money to your election?
Well, right now we're pretty much just accepting checks, but that will change here in the future.
You got the address memorized by any chance?
Put it to my attention, Joe Molinar at 4717 Hondo Pass Drive. It's going to be Suite 1D as in David, El Paso, Texas, 79904.
Excellent. And I hope that you can all write that down.
Payable to the Joe Molinar Campaign.
The Joe Molinar Campaign. Excellent. Okay. Well, Joe, this has been an amazing opportunity. I'm so glad that we could give the opportunity to our followers to learn more about you. We wish you every success and Godspeed in your bid for re-election. And thank you again for your service as a Marine, as a police officer, and as a city council representative. You're doing a spectacular job. Keep it up.
Thank you, sir. Semper Fi. Take care.
Semper Fi. Checking out.